All right, so kicking this podcast off today, I wanted to start with the attention economics. So we've talked a little bit about the attention economy, but basically the idea is an approach to the management of information that treats human attention as a scarce commodity and applies economic theory to solve various information management problems. So basically, attention is focused mental engagement on a particular item of information. Items come into our awareness, we attend to a particular item, and then we decide whether to act. As content has grown increasingly abundant and immediately available, attention becomes the limiting factor in the consumption of info. Your attention is a scarce resource, and a person only has so much of it. I was telling my wife that sometimes I feel like the Eye of Sauron in Lord of the Rings, where, you turn toward something and you focus on it for a few hours, and then something pulls your attention in a different direction. So you have to switch and slowly move over there, and then you try to get something done, and then something pulls, So
You gotta like restructure your whole all right, because you're focused on one thing, then you got to change gears, and it's like, all right, now you got to use a different aspect of your brain because if you're doing a more like analytical or creative or whatever it is.
exactly. So it says, in an information-rich world, the wealth of information means a dearth of something else, a scarcity of whatever it is that information consumes. And what information consumes is rather obvious. It consumes attention. Anything that pulls you out of that flow state of focus is a net negative. So like notifications on your phone, or emails that pop up, or a pet that's making a bunch of noise, anything like that is going to be really hard for productivity.
Yeah.
And then also, as it relates to advertising, if you're thinking of attention economics as advertising, you have to get a customer's attention long enough for them to listen to your music, or for them to buy your product, or even just to listen to your cue long enough to decide that you're a decent option to hire. If you're a composer, like, how do you grab people's attention? And in a couple of weeks, we have a guest coming on to talk about how they grew a Spotify listenership from scratch all the way to 100,000 plus subs a month. I guess they call them listeners, Spotify listeners, 100K Spotify listeners a month.
Oh, wow.
So we're going to pick their brain because that is unicorn status. And then I listened to Lex Friedman's interview with the Zuck. Do you ever listen to Lex podcast?
I've seen some. I think he did one with Elon, maybe a couple weeks ago, a month ago, something like that. I started watching it, but yeah, he's been getting some big names on there.
Yeah, we'll have Elon on soon, I'm sure. So Zuck referenced a tweet thread that I wanted to read you, and it says, "Hot take: everyone is wrong about the metaverse. Part 1: everyone is wrong. Most people think the metaverse is a virtual place, like in the movie Ready Player One, a virtual world like Minecraft or Roblox. But what if it's not a place? It's not a place, it's a time. A moment in time. In artificial intelligence, there's an idea of the singularity. It's a moment in time where AI becomes smarter than humans. The moment when artificial intelligence is more important or greater than human intelligence. The metaverse is the moment in time where our digital life is worth more to us than our physical life. This is not an overnight change or an invention by some Steve Jobs type. It's a gradual change that's been happening for 20 years. Every important part of our lives are going digital. Work, it used to be from factories, now it's laptops, from boardrooms to Zoom meetings. Your friends used to be your neighbors and houses close to you to followers. Where do you find like-minded people? Probably not in your neighborhood. It's probably on Twitter, Reddit, Discord, etc. Games, more kids play Fortnite than basketball and football combined. Identity, filters, Instagram filters are the new makeup. Stories are your personal billboard to broadcast who you are. What matters more? What you look like in real life or what you look like on Instagram? And he goes on and basically says everything goes digital, your friends, your job, your identity. If everyone hangs out online all the time, then your flexes and wins need to be digital. And so if you play this forward another 10 to 20 years, we cross into the metaverse, which is the moment in time where digital matters to us more than physical. Our attention used to be 99% on our physical environment. TVs dropped that to 85%, computers down to 70%, phones down to 50%. Our attention has been sucked from physical to digital. And then where attention goes, energy flows. And so basically, the idea is our lives are slowly becoming more and more important in the online realm and less important in the physical realm where you live, your geography. And so he says, is this a good or bad thing? Not sure. Like anything, it's just a thing. And so that's the moment in time when the metaverse starts, when our virtual life will become more important than our real life. And so I wanted to get your take on that kind of concept, because we work remotely, right? And like,
yeah,
I haven't seen you in person in 3 years probably.
yeah.
But we talk every day.
Mm-hmm.
So our digital life, as far as work goes, is definitely more important than our physical life, because we're not clocking in at a factory. We're not commuting to work most days.
Mm-hmm. I feel like the beauty of the digital world is like it's allowed people to connect with each other that maybe they never would have.
Yeah.
Making connections. There's a lot of people who've their lives changed. Like for me, like if this didn't exist, I wouldn't probably be able to work for Soundiron. Like how would I have met Mike or that sort of thing.
Right.
Certain connections you make or friendships that you make, it's not always the case of how it used to be, where you just bump into people at a bar. I mean, that stuff still exists.
Yeah.
There is still like the beauty of like natural human interactions that can alter your life, or allow you to, do things maybe you never did before. There's a lot of great things about it. I feel it's funny. I was talking about this recently, and there's so much about it too that can be bad. I think, especially for, with social media, there's, there's now a lot of things where it's a numbers game, and it can be very detrimental to people's mental health.
Yeah.
If you allow it to do that to you, it's like if you see it like, hey, this is a tool, like I use it for, showing people my art. It's kind of like with art, like would you do it if social media wasn't around? Probably. But now there's a lot of things that people do for social media.
Yeah. You start paying attention to the metrics and the likes and the dopamine.
Exactly. Like when I used to practice guitar when I was a kid, I didn't practice a lick so I can like nail it and then record myself and post it on Instagram. Instagram wasn't a thing. Facebook wasn't even a thing. You sat in there and you nailed it for like your own want to achieve a specific goal, musically or technically or whatever. And that's kind of the aspect of things that I kind of miss. Like when you did things or you're using your time for that, it's not because I wanted to, making content, the whole like content game.
Yeah.
So
what, you're not a guitar influencer?
I don't try to, but it's just like, it's one of those things, like there's beauty in like technological advances, but then there's always, with everything, there's people who either like abuse it or people who let it get to them. So I mean, there is something cool that could be with, like all of this stuff going further and further away from humanity and living in this like cybernetic world. Like I don't know, like it's, I mean, I'm old school, not old school, but like I still like, it's like, you feel like when you're a kid and you heard people saying like, what's all this computer stuff going on? I don't, back in the day we didn't need a computer,
right.
But it's like, I grew up, to where like, when I was in probably like middle school, high school, is like when like all that stuff started kind of becoming more and more in the forefront. So I've seen both. I've lived in both aspects, but like then it going fully that it's like, it gets a little kind of like, I don't know. Cause you see like, you see how things have been with social media now. And like, there are a lot of things that because of it, there's been some ugly things,
Well, I think we can both agree that like being on Twitter for 16 hours a day isn't healthy. or like being on any social map platform or like your phone for that long isn't like healthy to the human body.
Yeah, it's like, sometimes you're like, hey, I got to get away from this and like go do something,
Mm-hmm.
like, there is something to say about like having like human interactions and like, hey, we're going to go out here and, we're going to hang out, we're going to shoot pool or something, or,
Yeah.
or just go and have a few drinks, get something to eat. Like, as much as like, you and me talk every day online, it's kind of like there is, something that's like, oh, it is cool. Like, when we have hung out, like, oh, it's cool to like see people in person and,
Yeah, I'm
but I
not
think that,
cooler in person though.
no, you're just way taller. You
Right.
hover over me. But yeah, it's like there's beauty in both. And I would hate to see a world where people just get completely lost in like the digital world.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, I'd be curious to see like what kind of things can come from that sort of technology, but I wouldn't want to get lost in the matrix, and just be like,
Lost in the sauce. Yeah, I liked this thread because he basically said nobody will call it the metaverse in a few years. That's like super cheesy. It's like in 97, people used to call the internet the information superhighway and cyberspace. He's like,
mm-hmm.
don't call it that. But I liked that he was talking about your digital life being more important than your physical life in a lot of ways. And I completely relate to that because so much of my existence is in the cloud, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
and like there are parts of my life that I keep physical and like a house and my instruments, but there are many more things and much of my energy is spent looking at a screen.
Yeah, totally. Same here.
But I mean, I don't know about you, but I wasn't allowed to get a cell phone until I was 16. And when I got a cell phone, it was a flip phone, rocking the T9 word, no internet on it. And so you're sending SMS, and very young kids these days are on TikTok. And when you're 2 years old, you get a government issued iPad, right?
Yeah, I've seen like 5-year-old kids just like with this giant iPad playing Roblox, like all into it. They know all this stuff. Like, oh yeah, go into the thing, blah blah. I'm like, when I was your age, I was burying toys in the dirt, you know? Like,
Yeah.
I didn't know anything about any of that. Like, it's crazy to see how, yeah, like kids are just being raised automatically right into the whole internet and iPads and laptops. Like, I mean, I didn't get a cell phone until I was probably like maybe like 19, but
Yeah.
like cell phones were just kind of like more
Optional.
like it was more like just kind of becoming more of like a regular thing. Like, I think probably some people already had them, but like I didn't. And then it was like, oh, you want to get a cell phone? Like, oh, okay. And so it was like, all right. But before that, it was just,
Now like even homeless people have cell phones. Like
yeah,
everyone has a cell phone.
yeah. There's Instagrams of homeless people that have their own followings and stuff and doing their thing. It's crazy time. We live in a very wild time.
But it's not going to get any more normal, right?
No, it's gonna just get more and more ridiculous. So strap your seatbelt on because things about to get real weird. It's gonna get real
Buckle in.
weird. Yeah.
Okay, so the next thing I wanted to talk to you about is this dude Jonny Greenwood. Okay, so
It's my boy.
he just went
My boy
on
Johnny.
he went on NPR Fresh Air and did the podcast with Terry Gross. So I listened to that, and he's a very quiet, reserved guy. He doesn't do a lot of interviews,
Mm-hmm.
but he has 3 movies that he scored last year: Spencer, The Power of the Dog, and Licorice Pizza. And they all have very different feeling, very different vibe. And he's a really interesting guy, and he's just everywhere right now
Mm-hmm.
for me. So it's kind of like when you first buy a car and you're like, oh, I love this car, and then you start seeing that car everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it is
Yeah.
for me and Jonny Greenwood. Like I watched Phantom Thread this weekend, which is why I listened to that interview. And now I see him everywhere. He's all over YouTube. He's all over, Wikipedia. Is all over my podcast. So with the movie Power of the Dog, he was trying to make like a Western, but with a lot of different like elements, musical elements in it. So he started with a banjo and a string quartet, and
Mm-hmm.
it turned out kind of bad. So he took a cello and he turned it sideways and started playing banjo chording and like rolling patterns in the right hand on the cello. And
Interesting.
that is the score for Power of the Dog, which is a Benedict Cumberbatch cowboy movie.
Yeah, I remember seeing that. I've been kind of wanting to check that out because I remember seeing that he scored that and also Phantom Thread. It's funny. I was listening to the score. I haven't even seen the movie, but I've listened to the score just because There Will Be Blood was like one of my favorite soundtracks. But yeah, I've been meaning to want to watch those. I didn't know about the other ones, but the one that you were talking about, the Benjamin
Benjamin Cumberbun.
Benjamin, call him Doctor Strange.
He's Sherlock to me.
Oh, okay. Well, that's where we don't see eye to eye. He is Doctor. No.
Let's get one thing straight.
Yeah, come on.
So Phantom Thread, honestly, the movie was a skip for me, but the score was beautiful. It was like Debussy. It was like very impressionistic. He rocked the felt piano kind of thing going on, but it's a really gorgeous, like beautiful piece of work with lots of different themes that come back through the movie.
Nice.
And then we talked a little bit about There Will Be Blood, which was 2007, and how he just did all these crazy string articulations. He used one section of the strings would be a quarter tone flat. And so like you get these like crazy dissonant tuning issues with your live orchestra. And he said the players also would be listening and they would be trying to fix the pitch as it was going, right? Because, your ear knows that it's out of tune. So they're constantly playing that first pitch and it's wrong. So they're shifting. And he said like that's how so much of it was made, was getting those weird sounds and just very eerie, creepy stuff from live players.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, the stuff he did with that score was just like so cool. Like, especially like using a lot of the string players like as like percussion, clunk, 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 like very just, I don't know, it just had such a cool or like ding, 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 these like cool like odd rhythms and just like using the strings almost as like a band and just doing all kinds of interesting stuff with it. And it's just and especially like the movie's amazing. Daniel Day-Lewis is amazing, like
so intense. Yeah.
Like, have you ever seen like the whole how he developed his character for that movie? I know this is not music related, but like it's so interesting because like he's such a what do you call those?
Method actor.
Method actor, yeah. So like, I remember hearing an interview where he was talking about how he was developing his voice because his voice sounds nothing. His normal voice sounds nothing like the character in that movie.
Okay,
and it's just it's crazy how he like went through all these processes to like find the sound of the character and the tone, and everything. And it's just like, everything about that movie is just like top notch. So good. I would love to see a movie with like him and Bryan Cranston. Like that would be like, but I think he's retired now. So
that's what he claimed. Phantom Thread was his last one. Jonny Greenwood also told a cute story about when he first joined Radiohead. The old keyboardist before him got fired for playing too loud. So he just played his keyboard with it turned off. And so like he would just have his keyboard turned off in band practice. And Tom York would say, yeah, I really like what you're doing. It's adding an interesting texture. And because he said it was, we're in these tiny practice rooms and everyone's just playing super loud guitar with distortion and drums and all that. So like it makes sense that your keyboard could just be off and no one would know for a while. So he said he went home at night and like was learning the chords to these songs and then slowly turned the keyboard up.
They're like, you got the gig.
Yeah.
It's funny. It's like that thing. Have you ever seen like when people are in the studio, like bands, or they don't know what's, it's their first time and they're like, hey, that thing to the kick, can you do that thing to the kick drum, make it sound like this? And they're like, yeah, sure. And they just grab a knob that does nothing. And they're like, how does that sound? Like, that's it.
The placebo effect is so powerful, man.
Yeah. And it's like, man, like, I don't know what you did, but like, it sounds like 10 times better. And you're just like, you just like, look at, the other person that works with you in the studio and just
you're like, wow,
these guys.
But speaking of rock bands turned composers, you just got to interview Serj, right?
Yeah, that was super cool because I've been a fan of System of a Down since I was in high school. I think I first heard about them in 9th grade, so 1999. Just gave my age away, old man.
Before you even had a cell phone.
I didn't even have a cell phone. I couldn't even look them up. You had to get either a CD from somebody or go buy it. Couldn't go on Apple Music. you know. But yeah, it was really cool. He's a super nice guy. He, for as much stuff as that guy has done, like if if you have the chance to meet him, he's just like such a super nice guy and
Down to earth.
super down to earth and creative. He's always doing like all this stuff. Like he's like doing symphony stuff. Like when you think of him as a singer in System of a Down, you would never think, oh, he's like doing all this orchestral stuff and scoring movies. So I think there's a lot of people who are like, oh, I didn't even really know he was doing this, or that he's, doing it so much more, because it's just so cool to see people kind of change gears in that way, like people like Danny Elfman, like we've talked about before, like
Yeah.
making that switch. Because one of the interesting things that I thought of, like kind of how he started getting into composing music for visuals, and for any of you that haven't seen the In the Studio, you can find it on our YouTube channel, and he goes way more into depth and shows some of his work process and that sort of thing.
Yeah, Craig's over here making documentary style movies on the old YouTube. He's like, shut up, kids, I'm making a film.
Yeah, I'm on my free time, I'm trying to be a documentary man. But yeah, he was talking about how he first started just, doing, like when he started doing art, and then like, oh, like what about what, because he showed how he did a painting that was based off of a measure of music that he did. So, he like drew it out, it has like notes and everywhere, but the notes on the staff are like clocks, and there's a lot of, artistic, ideas and stuff behind it, and why he went that direction. It's like, because art and music are so like hand in hand.
Mm-hmm.
People listen to music while they do art. There's a lot of people who do music that are inspired by art.
Yeah, so visual arts usually have music kind of going along, like movies and video games.
Yeah, it makes total sense. So, that's how he started kind of getting into like doing music for visuals. And then because he's not one of those composers who were like, I grew up listening to a bunch of, Stravinsky and all these guys. Like, he really got into it, from a lot of the film scores, very inspired by film scores and that sort of thing. And especially, there's so many ways you can get into it. You could be like, inspired by classical, or, oh, I heard the soundtrack for this movie and now I want to do that, so there's so many different ways you can get into it. But yeah, it was really cool to see his process. And he has this new studio. It's really, really cool. And he's just, showing some of his process of how he was going about scoring this project that he was working on that was based in Australia. And yeah, it was a really awesome experience, and really cool and surreal for me, because, like I said, I've been listening to them for like over 20 years or so. So
yeah. And he was using didgeridoos, right?
Yeah, he was showing how he was using our didgeridoo library on this project based in Australia. And he was just like, this is exactly what I needed.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, because didgeridoos, Australia, it makes sense.
Makes sense.
And yeah, and he was showing how he used it with some other instruments, and how a lot of the presets were really sort of the starting point for a lot of these cues, and just kind of getting the ball rolling. And then like, yeah, just, then I added some of this and some of this and have a pretty cool sounding cue. But yeah, he was just saying how the didgeridoo saved his ass. So that was pretty cool to see. And it was cool to see how he was using it on a project.
Yeah, I watched the video and he's very charismatic. Everything he says is very compelling and excited. And I thought it was interesting when he was talking about his previous job before doing music full time. So we won't spoil that. But go watch the In the Studio video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We know you're not subscribed yet.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who watch the videos that are not subscribed. So you know what you got to do. And hit that bell. Smash that like button, and smash that, that's what all the kids are saying. Smash that subscribe button.
Right. Gently caress the subscribe button.
No, just take a hammer and just
but speaking of our YouTube channel, we just released High School Drum Corps.
Yes. Yeah, we just posted the walkthrough. We're going to have some composing videos coming soon as well, showing it in action. I did a Soundiron session a while back using it as well. So it's just as applicable, if you've seen that video, using it in more of like marching band style. That's not my style, but with the Soundiron sessions, I like to try to, spread my wings into different genres I don't normally do. So you can also see High School Drum Corps in action. There's a few different videos in the playlist that you can check out. But yeah, it's an awesome update, because it's a really cool library, and this update is definitely taking it in a really cool direction.
Yeah, it makes
And
it much more usable. Mike was a high school percussionist. He played on the drum line in high school, and so he actually went back to his old high school and recorded a small drum line on the field and in their rehearsal band hall. So we have some different samples. We got indoor and outdoor. We got basses. The low bass, like the biggest bass drum, is epic. They play it with a soft mallet, and it's got this huge thud to it.
Just,
yeah. So it's on sale right now for $33. And by the time you're listening to this, we will also have a store-wide sale going on. All of our products are 33% off. It's a good time to pick up almost anything.
Yeah. Go through it. There's a lot to choose from.
We have like 150 products.
Yeah, just go in and there's all kinds of different stuff. Yeah, but the high school drum corps library is just, the upgrades really cool. Remastered samples, super cool user interface that gives you like so many different things to do. Like you can have like a bass drum playing and a snare playing at the same time. You can put some ambiances and all kinds of stuff. Like just so many more things you can do just with even just one instance of the library. It's really cool.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite library? If someone was like for instance, someone this weekend was like, what's your favorite Soundiron library? And I was like on the spot, because we have like 150 products. And I was like, what is my favorite Soundiron library? I was like, well, I'll give you a few of my favorites. Yeah. One of them's Imbibophones. One of them is probably Sonospheres 4.
Oh, yeah.
One of them is Hyperion Brass Elements, I think. Emotional Piano, stuff that I actually use frequently, like would be like Apocalypse Elements and Cruiser. But I wanted to know if you had like a favorite few that you would recommend somebody who's like just browsing our shop for the first time.
I would probably say Apocalypse Percussion. That one is just, because I love big epic percussion, and
you love big bass, and you cannot lie.
I love big bass percussion, and yes, I cannot lie. And I would say Hyperion Brass Elements as well. That's just a really good one. Also Hyperion Strings, like using those together. Emotional Piano, I use that a lot. Even if I'm just like sketching and it's not in the track, I'm using it just for, getting inspired and fleshing out a piece or an idea. When I do use piano, that's what I use. I also I really like a lot of the solo vocal libraries, like Francesca. I use her a lot, especially like even for my band. I did this track that was like this kind of like Viking style, and I used some of her vocal phrases, because for anyone who's ever seen that show Vikings, there's a lot of like really cool vocal stuff that you hear, especially for anyone who listens to like Wardruna and stuff like that. Really, really cool stuff. So I've used her on numerous projects. Also, Mimi Page, I've used that on my own personal projects as well.
Yeah,
Cruiser as well. I've used Cruiser, or like the voice of Rapture. Like I'll probably end up just going on, and my favorites list will just probably end up
it's like a list of 50.
Yeah, but I mean, if I had to recommend a couple, also probably Requiem Light Choir. I love that Marcato patch. When you set it to phrase, I use that so much, because it's just like, it's like the recent, like the Soundiron session I did. A lot of that's using micro libraries too, which was a fun experiment, because I think some people think maybe the micro libraries are limited, or maybe they don't sound as big as maybe the Elements or something. Like, I mean, of course it's less in articulations, but you can get a huge sound even just with those. But yeah, the Requiem Light Choir is probably like when I need epic, because you could just be like, changing the different phrases like with every time you stop and start, so it's just so fun to play, especially if you like Skyrim or something like those kind of, it's just really cool.
Instant epic for sure. It's easy to get lucky. And those are the libraries that I like when I have go-tos, it's one of those where you open up a patch and you instantly are taken somewhere that you can use. It's like, it's easy to get lucky is the way I kind of think of it. Like I'm noodling, and it's like, oh, that sounds good. Oh, record that. Oh, yeah, get that idea down.
Yeah, especially like Circle Bells too. That's like one of those like kind of like what do you call those? Like your secret libraries that you just kind of like it. People probably like, what is that? I don't know what that is. Like, because it has like such a very like cool tone to it.
Yeah, you're like
it's
that's
very
the
like
point.
melodic. Yeah, but it's like those kind of like hidden treasure libraries where like you're like, oh wow, I didn't even like know I needed that until you hear it, sort of thing. And it's like really cool. Just like so many of those like the little tuned percussion libraries that are just like so fun to use and very like musical and inspiring. And or flatulous, just put flatulous on everything. Layer that.
The secret sauce.
With some choir. Yeah, the secret sauce is like man, how did you get the low end in that track to sound so huge?
So huge. And you did the trailer for that.
Oh yeah, that was probably like the funnest trailer I've ever gotten to make. Like, when do you ever get to say, now you can say your music is the shit?
With Not often. Not often.
That's my favorite line. Yeah, that was so fun. I was literally like, I had to stop recording because I'm laughing, like reading these lines that I wrote. I'm just like, when else can I get away with this? And that's the beauty of Soundiron. Want to do a fart library? Let's do it.
Boom. And on that brown note, we'll close it out here.
Nice.
I don't have any recommendations other than that podcast. You can check out the Lex and Zuck podcast if you want to watch Zuckerberg get a little uncomfortable. He did a really good job, talking about his vision for Facebook and Meta and all that. And Jonny Greenwood, you should listen to his score and you should subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Yeah, I recommend that you subscribe to the YouTube channel because we have a lot of cool stuff coming. We got a lot of cool walkthroughs. You want to stay up to date on any of the new walkthroughs, composition videos, watch Nathan show you how it's done, making a track from just using one library,
free expansion packs coming up.
Yeah, we got a lot of cool stuff coming, a lot more in the studio interviews we want to do, Soundiron sessions, stay up to date.
Don't miss out. The FOMO is real. All right. I think that does it for us. Craig, I'll catch you next week.
Catch y'all on the flippity flip.
Peace.